The scent hit me first. Ancient pine, smoke from the sacred fires, and something else. Something primal that made the tiny hairs on my arms rise. Ceremonial drums pounded in the distance, their rhythm echoing the frantic beating of my heart as I pressed my back against the rough stone wall of the castle corridor. I wasn't supposed to be here. No one like me ever was. "Stand straight, Ilara," my sister Mira whispered harshly, her fingers digging into my arm as she adjusted the folds of my borrowed dress. The fabric felt too smooth against my skin, too fine for someone like me. "Remember what Mother said. Stay invisible, stay silent, and for the God's sake, don't draw attention to yourself." I nodded, though I knew being invisible came naturally to me. In a society where strength, beauty, and power were currency, I had always been bankrupt. The blind Omega, they called me. When they bothered to acknowledge me at all. "I shouldn't be here," I whispered, my fingers instinctively reaching for the small wooden pendant hanging at my throat. A wolf carved by my grandmother before she died. She'd placed it in my palm the night she passed, her voice barely audible as she told me, "Sometimes the clearest sight comes from within, little one." My fingertips traced the familiar contours of the carving, feeling each groove and ridge that I had memorized over the years. It was my talisman, my one connection to someone who had seen me as more than a burden. "Just stay by the wall during the choosing," Mira instructed. "No alpha will look twice at you, but Mother insists all eligible Omegas must attend. It's tradition." The choosing. Once every decade, the Alpha King selected a mate from among the kingdom's Omegas. Families had spent months preparing their daughters, enhancing their beauty, teaching them to showcase their fertility and submission, qualities prized in potential queens. And here I stood in a borrowed dress, with hair hastily braided, my clouded eyes unable to see the spectacle that would unfold. The corridor suddenly fell silent. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as a new scent cut through the air. Winter frost, leather, and raw power. I didn't need sight to know who approached. King Nathaniel, ruler of the Northern Territories, the most powerful alpha our land had seen in generations. Mira's grip tightened painfully on my arm. "He's coming," she hissed unnecessarily. "Remember, eyes down. Well, just stay still." I almost laughed at the absurdity of her instruction. Eyes down. My eyes, milky blue and unseeing, were the least of my concerns. I focused instead on my other senses, which had sharpened to compensate for my blindness. The heavy footfalls approaching, the subtle intake of breath from those around me, the way the very air seemed to bend in submission to his presence. Then, without warning, the footsteps stopped, directly in front of me. The silence stretched, becoming unbearable. I could feel the weight of attention pressing upon me, though I couldn't see the eyes that I knew must be staring. My heart hammered so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. "You." The voice was deep, like thunder rolling across distant mountains. A single word that seemed to vibrate through my bones. I swallowed hard, uncertain if he was addressing me. It seemed impossible. What would the Alpha King want with the blind Omega? "Your name." Not a question, but a command. Mira's fingers dug deeper into my arm. A warning. I should keep quiet, keep my head down, remain invisible as I'd been taught. But something stirred within me, something that had lain dormant for 22 years of careful submission. "Ilara," I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. I lifted my chin slightly, a small act of defiance against a lifetime of keeping my head bowed. A collective gasp rippled through the corridor. No one spoke directly to the king unless specifically requested, and certainly not someone like me. I felt him move closer, his scent enveloping me. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. I resisted the urge to step back, forcing myself to stand my ground though my knees threatened to buckle. "The blind one," he stated flatly. Not a question, just acknowledgement of what was obvious to anyone with eyes. The words stung, though they shouldn't have. I'd heard worse throughout my life. Whispers that I was cursed, damaged, unworthy of even being called an Omega. In our world, Omegas were prized for their beauty and ability to bear strong children. A blind Omega was considered useless, a burden to her family, taking up space that could be occupied by someone of value. "Yes, Your Majesty," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "The blind one." Something changed in the air between us. a shift so subtle I almost missed it. The scent of frost and leather remained, but underneath it bloomed something new. Interest? Curiosity? Whatever it was, it made my wolf stir beneath my skin, suddenly alert. "Come," he commanded. And before I could process what was happening, strong fingers wrapped around my wrist. Not roughly, but with a firmness that brooked no argument. "Your Majesty," Mira interjected desperately, "my sister is not. She cannot." Silence. The single word held enough authority to instantly cut off Mira's protest. Panic rose within me as he pulled me forward. Where was he taking me? What could he possibly want with me? I stumbled slightly, unused to being led at such a pace, and his grip adjusted, somehow more secure yet less confining. "The ceremony begins in an hour," he said, his voice lower now, meant only for me. "You will attend at my side." My mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Kings chose beautiful, perfect Omegas, not blind, forgotten girls who lived in the shadows of their families. "There must be a mistake," I whispered, unable to keep the words from escaping. "I'm not—" "There is no mistake." His tone left no room for argument. We stopped abruptly, and I sensed we had entered a different space. The air was warmer here, carrying the scent of beeswax candles and old parchment. A private chamber, perhaps. "Leave us," he commanded, and I heard several sets of footsteps retreat, doors closing with a heavy thud. Alone with the Alpha King. My pulse raced with fear, and something else I couldn't name. I stood perfectly still, afraid that any movement might break whatever strange spell had led him to single me out. "You're afraid?" Again, not a question. "Yes," I admitted. What was the point in lying? He could surely smell my fear. Of me? I considered this. Was it him I feared? Or the unknown situation in which I suddenly found myself? Of what this means, I answered truthfully. He moved around me in a slow circle, and though I couldn't see him, I felt his gaze like a physical touch, assessing, measuring. I resisted the urge to fidget under his scrutiny. "They say you were born blind," he stated. "Yes. And yet you move with certainty. You knew I was approaching before I spoke." I nodded slightly. "I sense things. Scents, sounds, changes in the air. Your wolf compensates for what your human eyes cannot see." And my hand instinctively rose to touch the wooden pendant at my throat. My grandmother said something similar before she died. He was silent for a moment, and I heard the rustle of fabric as he moved closer. "What else did your grandmother tell you, Alara?" The way he said my name sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. No one had ever spoken it with such intent. "That sometimes the clearest sight comes from within," I replied, my fingers still tracing the carved wolf. He made a sound. Not quite a laugh, but something close to approval. A wise woman. She was the only one who didn't see my blindness as a curse. "And how do you see it?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked for my perspective on my own condition. "It just is," I said finally. "Like the color of my hair or the sound of my voice. It's part of me." "Your hair," he said, his voice suddenly closer, "is the color of pale moonlight." I froze as I felt him lift a strand that had escaped my braid. My light blonde hair was one of the few things I'd been told was beautiful about me, though I'd never been able to see it myself. "You're not what they expected me to choose," he said, releasing my hair. "I'm not what anyone would choose," I replied honestly. His scent shifted again, taking on a sharper note that I couldn't interpret. "And yet here you stand." Before I could respond, the door opened, and a new presence entered the room. The scent of steel and loyalty told me it was someone close to the king. A trusted advisor, perhaps. "Your Majesty," a deep voice rumbled. "The council is demanding an explanation. They say the choosing cannot proceed with—" He paused, and though I couldn't see it, I felt his gaze fall upon me. "With her." My chest tightened. Of course. The council would never accept a blind Omega as their queen. This strange interlude would end now, and I would be sent back to my family in disgrace for having somehow drawn the king's attention, however briefly. "The council does not dictate my choices, Sebastian," the king replied, his voice hardening to granite. "Prepare her for the ceremony." "But sire, the ancient laws—" "I know the laws better than any of them," he cut in. "Choose any woman you want, Alpha King. That is what the first law states. I have made my choice." My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be happening. He couldn't possibly mean to choose me as his mate, his queen. It defied all logic, all tradition. "As you wish, Your Majesty," Sebastian replied, though I could hear the reservation in his tone. The king's hand suddenly cupped my cheek, his touch surprisingly gentle for one with such power. "You will be prepared and brought to the great hall. You will stand beside me during the ceremony." I should feel honored, grateful. Any other Omega would be ecstatic to be singled out by the king. Instead, confusion and suspicion churned within me. "Why?" I asked, the word escaping before I could stop it. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, a touch so light it might have been my imagination. "Because when I entered that corridor, yours was the only heartbeat that didn't race with ambition or desire for my crown. You, blind Omega, saw me more clearly than any of them." With that cryptic statement, he withdrew his touch and moved away. I heard the door open and close, and his commanding presence vanished from the room, leaving me with Sebastian and 1,000 questions spinning through my mind. What had just happened? And more importantly, what would happen next? Sebastian cleared his throat, breaking the stunned silence that had fallen over the room after the king's departure. "My lady," he said, the formal address sounding foreign to my ears, "the royal attendants will arrive shortly to prepare you." "This is madness," I whispered, my legs suddenly weak. I reached out, finding the edge of what felt like a table to steady myself. "There must be some misunderstanding." "The king does not misunderstand," Sebastian replied, his voice carefully neutral. "Nor does he make decisions lightly. But I'm blind." I stated the obvious, the words bitter on my tongue. "The council will never accept me. The people will think their king has lost his mind." "It is not your place to question his judgment," he said, though without harshness. Something in his tone softened slightly. "Though I understand your confusion." Before I could respond, the door opened again, and the room filled with the scent of various perfumed oils and the rustle of fabrics. Female voices murmured in surprise as they entered. "This is her?" one whispered, not quietly enough. "The blind one from the northern province," another confirmed. "Surely the king cannot be serious." "Enough," Sebastian cut them off. "By order of King Nathaniel, you will prepare Lady Alara for the choosing ceremony. You will afford her every respect due to the king's chosen." I stood frozen, as hands reached for me, removing my simple borrowed dress. No one asked permission. As an Omega, my body was not considered my own during these ceremonial preparations. I swallowed my discomfort as cool air kissed my bare skin, focusing instead on controlling my breathing and trying to make sense of what was happening. The attendants worked in silence, washing my skin with scented water, applying oils that smelled of winter roses and night jasmine. One woman combed through my hair, tisking softly. "Such beautiful color," she muttered, almost reluctantly, like moonlight on fresh snow. They dressed me in what felt like silk, the fabric lighter than anything I'd ever worn. It slid against my skin like cool water as they adjusted the garment around my body. "The traditional white," one attendant explained, perhaps sensing my question, "though the cut is more elaborate than usual." Fingers worked at my hair, unbraiding, combing, arranging. I remained silent throughout, trying to process the sudden reversal of my fortune. Just hours ago, I had been the forgotten daughter, brought to the castle only because tradition demanded all eligible Omegas attend. Now I was being prepared to stand beside the Alpha King as his chosen mate. Why? The question burned in my mind. What could he possibly want with me? "Your pendant," one of the attendants said, her fingers brushing against the wooden wolf at my throat. "We should replace it with something more appropriate." I jerked back, my hand flying up to protect the carving. "No," I said firmly. "It stays." A tense silence followed my refusal. Omegas, particularly those chosen by alphas of high standing, were expected to be compliant in all things. "Let her keep it." Sebastian's voice cut through the tension. The king did not specify it should be removed. The attendant backed down, though I could sense her disapproval. They continued their work, adding what I assumed were jewels to my hair and wrists, dabbing more scent at my pulse points. When they finished, one of them guided me to what must have been a mirror. A meaningless gesture for me, but I understood the ritual importance. "She looks," one attendant began, then trailed off. "Different," another supplied. "But not unpleasant." Such faint praise might have stung once. Now it barely registered through the fog of my confusion. "It is time," Sebastian announced. "The ceremony will begin soon." As the attendants filed out, I turned in Sebastian's direction. "Why is he doing this? The truth, please." A pause followed, long enough that I thought he might not answer. Then, "The king has his reasons. It is not my place to question them. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give." His voice moved closer. "But I will tell you this. King Nathaniel is not cruel. Whatever his purpose, he will not harm you." Somehow that did little to reassure me. Harm came in many forms, not all of them physical. Sebastian offered his arm, which I found after a moment of awkward searching. He led me through corridors that echoed with our footsteps, the sounds of the castle growing louder as we approached what must be the great hall. The ceremonial drums grew louder, and with them the murmur of hundreds of voices. My pulse quickened. I had never been in the presence of so many people, had never been the center of attention. The very thought made me want to retreat back into the shadows where I'd spent my life. "The council members will be seated to the left of the dais," Sebastian explained quietly as we walked. "They will not be pleased, but they cannot openly oppose the king's choice. The Alpha Lords from the 5 territories will stand at the front with their families. Your family will be brought forward when the claiming is announced. My family." My chest tightened. What would my mother think? After years of barely acknowledging my existence, treating me as a burden to be hidden away, would she suddenly see value in me as the king's chosen? The thought left a bitter taste in my mouth. "Here," Sebastian said, stopping. "Wait until the announcement before ascending. I must take my place with the king." He released my arm, and I fought the momentary panic of being left alone in an unfamiliar space. I took a deep breath, centering myself, using my other senses to map my surroundings. The stone floor beneath my feet was smooth, worn by generations of footsteps. The air carried the scent of beeswax candles, ceremonial incense, and the combined presence of hundreds of bodies. The sound of voices echoed off high ceilings, suggesting a vast chamber. A hush suddenly fell over the crowd, and I knew without being told that the king had entered. The atmosphere shifted, tension and expectation replacing the previous buzz of conversation. A voice called out, deep and formal. "All rise for His Majesty Nathaniel Ravencroft, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, Guardian of the 5 Packs, Protector of the Ancient Ways." The sound of hundreds of people standing at once was like a wave breaking against shore. I stood straighter, my hands clasped tightly before me to hide their trembling. The king's voice rang out, powerful enough to reach every corner of the vast hall without shouting. "For 10 generations, the law has stood. Every decade, the Alpha King chooses a mate to stand beside him, to strengthen our bloodlines, to ensure our future." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "The law states, choose any woman you want, Alpha King," he continued. "Today, I claim that right. Today, I make my choice." The tension in the hall was palpable now, a living thing that pressed against my skin. Every eligible family would be holding their breath, hoping to hear their daughter's name called. "Alara of House Wintermoon," the king announced, his voice betraying no emotion. "Come forward and be claimed." The silence that followed was absolute. A vacuum of sound so complete I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Then, like a dam breaking, whispers erupted throughout the hall. "The blind one? Is this some kind of jest? Has the king lost his mind?" I stood frozen, my legs refusing to move. This was really happening. In front of the entire kingdom, the Alpha King had chosen me, the blind, forgotten Omega no one had ever wanted. "Alara of House Wintermoon," the king repeated, his voice hardening slightly. "Come forward." I took a deep breath and stepped forward, praying I was moving in the right direction. I had no cane, nothing to guide me through what must be a crowded hall with all eyes fixed upon me. I had never felt more vulnerable, more exposed. A hand touched my elbow, making me flinch. "It's Sebastian," a low voice murmured. "Let me guide you." Gratitude washed through me as his steady hand led me forward. I focused on keeping my steps even, my head high despite the weight of hundreds of stairs I could feel but not see. We ascended what must be steps to a dais, and then Sebastian released me. A new presence stood before me, the unmistakable power and scent of the Alpha King. His hand took mine, the warmth of his skin a shock against my cool fingers. "Kneel," he commanded softly. I sank down, my knees finding the cushion that must have been placed there for this purpose. The ceremonial claiming was a ritual as old as our kind, part political alliance, part ancient wolf magic that bound Alpha to Omega. I, Nathaniel Ravencroft, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, claim this Omega as mine, he declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Let all who stand witness know that she is under my protection, part of my pack, tied to my blood and my throne. His hand moved to the back of my neck, the traditional position of dominance that awakened something primal within me. My Omega Wolf responded instinctively, a warmth spreading through my body as it recognized and submitted to the touch of an Alpha. My Alpha. Rise, he said, his voice softer now, but still carrying in the silent hall. Rise as my chosen, as future Queen of the Northern Territories. He helped me to my feet, and as I stood beside him, his arm came around my waist in a possessive gesture that sent a shiver down my spine. The message was clear to all watching. She is mine. I expected protests, challenges from the council or the noble families who had brought their beautiful, perfect Omega daughters for the king's consideration. Instead, a heavy silence hung over the hall, broken only when the king spoke again. Let the celebration begin. Tonight, we feast in honor of my chosen mate. Music started. Breaking the spell of silence, conversations resumed, though I could still hear the undercurrent of shock and confusion in the voices around us. Breathe. The king murmured close to my ear. You're doing well. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. I exhaled slowly, turning my face slightly toward his. They think you've lost your mind, I whispered back. What they think is irrelevant, he replied, his hand still firm at my waist as he began guiding me down from the dais. Come. We must greet the council and the Alpha Lords. Stay close to me. As if I had any choice, as if I had any idea how to navigate this strange new world into which I'd been thrust. We moved through the crowd, which parted before us like water. I could smell the confusion and disapproval emanating from those we passed, mixed with the bitter scent of disappointment from families whose daughters had been overlooked. Your Majesty, a voice addressed us, heavy with forced deference. The council wishes to offer congratulations on your choice. Save your false pleasantries, Lord Blackthorn, the king replied coldly. I'm well aware of your disapproval. We merely question the wisdom. You question nothing. The king cut him off. The law gives me the right to choose any woman I want. I have chosen. A blind Omega. Another voice interjected, lower and raspier. Forgive us, Your Majesty, but the Queen must be able to perform certain duties, to represent our kingdom with strength and beauty. How can she— Careful, Lord Redwood, the king warned, his arm tightening around me. You speak of my chosen mate. The tension was thick enough to choke on. I stood straight beside the king, refusing to cower despite the weight of judgment pressing against me from all sides. Perhaps, I said, surprising myself as much as everyone else, Lord Redwood could elaborate on which duties require eyesight rather than intelligence or loyalty. A shocked silence followed my words. An Omega, especially one newly claimed, was expected to remain silent unless directly addressed, and I had just challenged an Alpha Lord in front of the entire court. The king's hand at my waist squeezed slightly, in warning or approval I couldn't tell. Indeed, he said, a new note in his voice that sounded almost like satisfaction. I find myself curious as well, Lord Redwood. Please, enlighten us. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Lord Redwood struggled to respond. I could sense the eyes of the entire court upon us, could feel the collective shock at my boldness. I meant no disrespect, Lord Redwood finally said, his voice strained. Merely concern for the traditional responsibilities of the Queen. Your concern is noted and dismissed, the king replied. Lady Alara will fulfill her duties as my mate and queen with my full confidence and support. He guided me away before anyone could respond, his hand steady at my waist. As we moved through the crowd, he leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. You surprised them, he murmured. Few would dare challenge an Alpha Lord so directly, especially not an Omega on her claiming day. I shouldn't have spoken, I whispered back, suddenly aware of the potential consequences of my impulsive words. I apologize if I've embarrassed you. Embarrassed me? There was a strange note in his voice. Amusement, perhaps? No, Alara, You've intrigued me further. Before I could ask what he meant, we were approached by another group, their scents familiar enough to make my stomach clench with anxiety. Your Majesty, my mother's voice, higher and sweeter than I'd ever heard it. What an unexpected blessing you have bestowed upon our family. The false warmth in her tone made me want to recoil. For years she had treated me as an embarrassment, a burden to be hidden away. Now she spoke as though my existence had always been a source of pride. Lady Wintermoon, the king acknowledged coolly, your daughter brings a unique strength to the throne. Yes, of course, my mother agreed quickly. Elara has always been special. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing bitterly. Special. A convenient word to replace defective or shameful. Now that the circumstances had changed. Elara. My sister Mira's voice, uncertain and confused. We never expected. At least her bewilderment was genuine. I reached out a hand in her direction, and after a moment of hesitation, she took it. Her fingers trembled slightly in mine. Are you well? She whispered, low enough that perhaps only I could hear. Yes, I replied, though well hardly described the tumultuous emotions churning within me. Shock, confusion, anxiety, and beneath it all, a strange undercurrent of possibility. A door opening where before had only been walls. Lady Elara needs rest, the king announced, cutting short the awkward family reunion. The celebration will continue, but we will retire. Murmurs of assent followed his declaration, though I could sense the speculation rippling through the crowd. An alpha claiming his omega traditionally culminated in the mating bond, a bite that would link us irrevocably, body and spirit. Was that to happen tonight? The thought sent a shiver of apprehension down my spine. As the king led me from the great hall, the sounds of the celebration faded behind us. We walked in silence through corridors that echoed with our footsteps, my mind racing with questions I dared not ask. Finally we stopped. A door opened, and the king guided me inside. The sense told me we had entered private chambers. His chambers, likely. The air was rich with his scent, with leather and parchment, with the subtle undertone of pine that seemed to follow him. You can breathe now, he said, his hand falling away from my waist. We're alone. I exhaled slowly, only then realizing how tense my body had become. Without his guiding touch, I stood uncertainly in the unfamiliar space. There's a chair to your left, he offered. Sit, if you wish. I moved carefully in the direction he indicated, my hands outstretched until they found the back of what felt like a heavy wooden chair. I lowered myself into it, grateful for its solidity beneath me when everything else felt so uncertain. You must have questions, he said. I heard him moving about the room, the soft clink of glass suggesting he was pouring drinks. Questions? I had 1,000 questions tangled in my mind, fighting for precedence. I settled on the most pressing. Why me? The movement stopped. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then footsteps approached, and the scent of wine reached me as he pressed a goblet into my hands. Drink, he said. You've had a trying day. I took a small sip, the rich wine warming my throat. You didn't answer my question. He moved away again, and I heard him settle into what must be another chair across from me. Why not you? He countered. Please don't mock me, I said quietly. We both know why not me. I'm blind. I'm from a minor house. I've spent my life hidden away, considered worthless by most. There were dozens of beautiful, accomplished omegas for you to choose from. Why claim the blind one? Perhaps because you speak to me as a person, not a crown, he replied, his voice thoughtful. Do you know how rare that is? I shook my head slightly. I speak to you as I do because I cannot see the visual cues that might warn me to be more cautious. It's not courage, just ignorance. Is it? The amusement was back in his voice. You challenged Lord Redwood knowing full well who he was. That wasn't ignorance, Elara. That was spine. I traced the rim of my goblet with my fingertip, considering his words. Still, there must be more to it than that. No alpha, let alone an alpha king, chooses a mate based on a moment's conversation in a corridor. He was silent again, long enough that I wondered if he would answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed, becoming more measured, more formal. There are things you don't know, things about our kingdom, about the threats we face. The chair creaked as he leaned forward. The northern borders are unstable. The The southern packs grow restless. Dissent festers within our own court. I frowned, trying to connect these political concerns to his inexplicable choice of me as his mate. "And you think a blind Omega will help with these problems? I think," he said carefully, "that appearances can be deceiving. I think that what others perceive as weakness can sometimes be strength. And I think that you, Alara of House Wintermoon, are not what you seem." A chill ran through me. "What do you mean?" "Your grandmother," he said, changing direction abruptly. "The one who gave you that pendant. What was her name?" My fingers automatically rose to touch the wooden wolf at my throat. Lydia Wintermoon. And before that? Before she married into House Wintermoon? I frowned, trying to remember. Grandmother had rarely spoken of her early life. "I'm not sure. Something with an S, I think. Why does it matter?" "It matters," he said, "because Lydia Silverbrook was the last known oracle to serve the Northern Territories." The word hung in the air between us. Oracle. A myth, a legend from the old stories. Omega's born with the gift of true sight, able to see beyond the physical realm, to glimpse threads of fate and possibility. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Oracles are just stories told to pups. They don't really exist." "They existed," he corrected, "though they grew increasingly rare over the centuries. The last confirmed oracle was your grandmother, who disappeared from court 50 years ago when she chose to marry into a minor house and live a quiet life." My mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Even if that were true, what does it have to do with me? I'm blind, not whatever you're suggesting. Are you? He leaned closer, his scent enveloping me. "You sensed my approach in that corridor before anyone else. You navigate spaces with an awareness that goes beyond mere sound and smell. And when you touch that pendant, your eyes, your supposedly blind eyes, flicker with silver." My breath caught. "That's not possible. I saw it happen. Just now when you touched it while we spoke of your grandmother." His voice softened. "The gift often skips generations, but it rarely disappears completely. Your grandmother must have sensed it in you. That's why she gave you the pendant, a focus object, traditionally used by young oracles to help channel their abilities." I shook my head, denying his words even as something resonated deep within me, the strange knowing I sometimes felt. The dreams that came true, the moments when I sensed things I shouldn't be able to sense. "If what you say were true," I said slowly, "why wouldn't she have told me? Why let me believe I was just broken?" "To protect you, perhaps." The king's voice was gentle now. "Oracles were hunted during the Great Purge. Many believed their power threatened the natural order. Your grandmother may have thought your blindness was the perfect cover. Who would suspect a blind girl of having the gift of sight?" I took a long sip of wine, my hand trembling slightly. "This is madness." "Is it?" He reached out, his fingers brushing against mine where they clutched the goblet. "What do you see when you touch that pendant, Alara? What do you feel?" I wanted to pull away, to dismiss his words as fantasy. But something kept me rooted in place. Something that whispered this mattered. "Comfort," I admitted. "Warmth, sometimes flashes of knowing. But that's normal, isn't it? Just intuition. Perhaps." He withdrew his hand. "Or perhaps it's the beginning of something more. Something that, with training, could become the gift your grandmother once wielded." I sat back in the chair, overwhelmed. "Even if, and it's a massive if, what you're suggesting is true, why claim me now? Why not wait? See if this gift manifests. Because time is not on our side." The king's voice hardened. "War is coming, Alara. I've seen the signs. The southern packs grow bold. They push at our borders, test our defenses. They've united under a new alpha. One who believes the old ways should be restored. The old ways? When alphas ruled through force alone. When omegas were possessions, not people." His voice grew tight with anger. "When oracles were tools of the state, their gifts exploited until they burned out and died." I shuddered at the image his words conjured. "And you think I can help prevent this war?" "I think the appearance of an oracle at court after 50 years would give our enemies pause." He paused. "And yes, if your gift can be awakened, it could provide us with insights, warnings, advantages they won't expect." The weight of his expectations pressed down upon me like a physical force. "So, I'm to be a weapon in your arsenal. A tool, just as in the old days." "No." The word was sharp, definitive. You are to be my queen, my mate, my equal. If the gift awakens, we will face the consequences together. If it doesn't, you will still be by my side. I set down my goblet, suddenly needing my hands free. And if I don't want this? If I don't want to be claimed for a gift I may not even possess, then say so. His reply surprised me. Say the words, and I will release you from the claiming. You can return to your family, to your life. I won't force you, Alara. The offer hung between us, tempting and terrifying all at once. Return to my family, to the shadows and whispers, to being the burden, the blind one? Or stay here, with this alpha who saw something in me no one else ever had, even if that something might not exist? I need time, I said finally. This is too much to process. Of course. His voice softened. You will have chambers adjoining mine. You will be treated with all the respect due my chosen mate, but the mating bite will wait until you decide. Relief washed through me. The bite was irreversible, a permanent bond that would tie us together for life. At least he wasn't demanding that immediately. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me yet. The humor was back in his voice, though tinged with something darker. The court will not make this easy for either of us. There will be challenges, questions, perhaps even dangers. Are you prepared for that? Was I? I'd lived my life in the shadows, protected from the world by my family's shame and my own limitations. Court politics were as foreign to me as flying. But then I thought of the alternative, going back, returning to invisibility after having been seen, truly seen, for perhaps the first time in my life. I'll stay, I said, surprised by the firmness in my voice. At least for now. I'll try to understand, whatever this is. Good. The approval in his voice sent an unexpected warmth through me. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we begin. Begin what? Your training. If you are an oracle, the gift is there. Dormant perhaps, but present. We need to awaken it. And if I'm not? If I'm just a blind girl whose grandmother told her pretty stories? He was silent for a moment. Then you will still be my chosen mate, and we will find another way to face what's coming. The certainty in his voice was both reassuring and terrifying. This Alpha King had staked everything on a wild gamble, that I was more than I appeared to be. What would happen when he discovered I was exactly what everyone else had always seen? Just Alara, the blind Omega, nothing special, nothing magical, nothing worth choosing. Yet a small voice whispered within me, but what if he's right? As if sensing my turmoil, the king stood. You need rest. Sebastian will show you to your chambers. As if summoned by his name, a knock came at the door. The king moved to open it, and Sebastian's now familiar scent entered the room. Take Lady Alara to the queen's chambers, the king instructed. Ensure she has everything she needs. Yes, your majesty. Sebastian approached, offering his arm, which I found after a moment's searching. As I stood to leave, the king's voice stopped me. Alara. I turned toward his voice. Yes, your majesty, Nathaniel. He corrected gently. When we're alone, call me Nathaniel. Something shifted in the air between us. Something I couldn't name but could feel with perfect clarity. A beginning, perhaps, or a precipice. Good night, Nathaniel, I said, testing the name on my tongue. Good night, Alara, he replied. Dream well. Sebastian led me through quiet corridors, the sounds of the celebration fading behind us. My mind whirled with everything I had learned. Oracles, ancient gifts, war brewing at the borders. And at the center of it all, an Alpha King who believed I might be something more than the broken creature I had always been told I was. Here we are, Sebastian said, stopping. I heard the sound of a heavy door opening. The Queen's chambers. They haven't been used since the King's mother passed 5 years ago. He guided me inside, and immediately I was enveloped in a complex tapestry of scents. Beeswax and lavender, old books and dried roses, dust and memories. The layout is simple, Sebastian explained, leading me slowly through the space. Sitting room first, with a fireplace to your right, bedroom through the door ahead, bathing chamber beyond that. There's a smaller room to the left that was once a study, though you may wish to use it differently. His words painted a picture I could not see, but could begin to feel as we moved through the rooms. My fingers trailed along furniture. Plush chairs, heavy tables, wooden bookshelves with leather-bound volumes I would never read. There are attendants waiting to help you prepare for bed, Sebastian said, stopping in what must be the bedroom. Should I send them in? The thought of more hands touching me, more strangers navigating my body through unfamiliar rituals, made my skin crawl. No, I said quickly. Thank you, but I prefer to manage on my own. A pause, then. As you wish, my lady. A note of approval in his voice suggested this was the right answer, though I hadn't been seeking his approval. Sebastian, I said before he could leave, may I ask you something? Of course. I turned toward his voice, wishing as I rarely did that I could see his face, read his expression. Do you believe what he says? About me being what he thinks I am? The silence stretched long enough that I began to regret asking. Then, the king is not given to flights of fancy, my lady. If he believes you possess the oracle's gift, he has reason. That's not an answer. A soft exhale, almost a laugh. You are direct, aren't you? Another pause. I believe something about you called to him. Whether that's an ancient gift, or simply the strength he saw in you, I cannot say, but I do believe he made his choice with purpose, not whim. I nodded slowly, absorbing his words. Thank you for your honesty. Rest well, my lady. Someone will come for you in the morning. After Sebastian left, I stood in the center of the room, suddenly overwhelmed by the silence, by the space that was now mine. I had never had chambers of my own before. At home, I had shared a small room with Mira, my bed tucked into the corner furthest from the window, as if my blindness might be contagious. Now I had rooms that had once belonged to a queen. Cautiously, I began to explore, my fingers mapping what my eyes could not see. The bed was enormous, its coverings rich velvet and silk. A vanity with bottles of perfume and oils. A wardrobe that, when I opened it, smelled of cedar and mothballs. Empty, waiting to be filled with garments befitting my new station. I found my way to the window and opened it, letting the night air flow in. The scent of pine and snow reached me, along with distant sounds of the forest beyond the castle walls. How high up was I? How far could one see from this window? Questions I could never answer myself. My fingers found the wooden pendant at my throat, the familiar shape of the wolf, a comfort against my skin. Was it really a focus object, as the king, as Nathaniel, had claimed? Had my grandmother truly been an oracle? And was I? The questions swirled in my mind as I prepared for bed, locating a silk nightgown in a chest at the foot of the bed. The fabric slid cool against my skin as I slipped beneath the covers, the mattress softer than any I had ever known. Sleep seemed impossible with so many thoughts competing for attention, yet exhaustion claimed me quickly, dragging me down into dreams filled with silver light and whispered prophecies. I woke to a gentle knock at my door and the scent of fresh bread and tea. Disoriented, I sat up quickly, momentarily forgetting where I was, until the memories of the previous day came flooding back. The choosing, the king, the impossible claim that I might be an oracle. Come in, I called, hastily smoothing my hair. The door opened, and light footsteps approached. Good morning, my lady, a young female voice greeted me. I've brought breakfast and hot water for washing. Thank you, I replied, unused to being served. What is your name? A startled pause. Lily, my lady. Thank you, Lily. I smiled in the direction of her voice. Could you help me find something suitable to wear today? I'm not familiar with what's available. Of course, the girl's voice brightened. The royal seamstresses worked through the night. Several dresses have already been delivered. I heard her move to what must be the wardrobe, the sound of doors opening and fabric rustling. There's a lovely blue silk that would complement your coloring beautifully, and a green velvet that feels wonderful to the touch. Perhaps you would prefer that. The thoughtfulness of her description, focusing on the feel of the fabric rather than just its appearance, touched me. The green velvet sounds perfect. Thank you. After breakfast, and with Lily's help, I dressed in the green velvet gown. Her nimble fingers arranged my hair in what she described as a simple but elegant style, with some strands left loose to frame my face. You look beautiful, my lady, she said when she finished, her voice sincere. Thank you, Lily. I touched my hair self-consciously. Though I'll have to take your word for it, the king will be pleased, she added, a smile in her voice. Before I could respond, Another knock came at the door. Lily answered it, and I heard her dip into a curtsy. His Majesty requests Lady Alara's presence in the East Tower, a male voice announced. Not Sebastian. Someone I didn't recognize. I'll be right there, I replied, my pulse quickening. The East Tower. What awaited me there? The messenger escorted me through the castle, up winding stairs that left me slightly breathless. The air grew cooler as we ascended, with a strange undercurrent of energy? Something I couldn't quite name but could feel prickling against my skin. Here we are, my lady, the messenger said, stopping. He knocked on a door which opened almost immediately. Thank you, James. You may go. Nathaniel's voice. He took my hand, drawing me inside and closing the door behind us. You slept well, I hope? Yes. Thank you, I replied, aware of his touch, of the warmth of his skin against mine. The rooms are beautiful. A small joke, one I was surprised to find myself making. He chuckled, the sound rich and unexpected. They suit you. Come, there's someone I want you to meet. He guided me further into the room, which smelled of old parchment, dried herbs, and something else, something ancient and powerful that made the hairs on my arms rise. Lady Alara, this is Morwen, Nathaniel said. She was advisor to my father and to his father before him. Welcome, child. The voice was female, elderly but strong, with an accent I couldn't place. I have waited a long time to meet one of Lydia's line. I dipped my head respectfully, unsure of the proper protocol. It's an honor to meet you, Lady Morwen. Just Morwen, she corrected, amusement in her voice. I gave up titles long ago. They weigh too heavily on old bones. Morwen is going to help us determine if you truly carry the Oracle's gift, Nathaniel explained, releasing my hand. And if so, how to awaken it. I swallowed hard, suddenly nervous. What if I don't? Have the gift, I mean. Then we will know, and no harm done, Morwen replied. But I think you do. I can sense it. Dormant, but present. Like a seed waiting for spring. Her confidence was both reassuring and terrifying. I reached for my pendant, the carved wolf warm beneath my fingers. Yes, the focus object, Morwen said approvingly. Lydia always did have a flair for symbolism. The wolf sees in darkness, hunts by instinct, knows what others do not. You knew my grandmother? I asked. Oh, yes. We trained together many years ago. She was powerful, one of the strongest oracles in generations. Morwen moved closer, her scent a mixture of herbs and candle smoke. May I? I nodded, though I wasn't sure what I was agreeing to. Gentle fingers touched my temples, cool and dry against my skin. Something shifted in the air around us. A pressure change like before a storm. Yes, Morwen murmured. The gift is there, buried deep. Your blindness. It's not a disability, child. It's a diversion of energy. Your physical sight was sacrificed so that your inner sight might grow stronger. I frowned. Are you saying I'm blind because of this gift? It's not uncommon, she replied. The human brain can only channel so much power. Sometimes sacrifices are made without our conscious choice, but your blindness protected you as well. Who would suspect a blind girl of seeing the future? Her fingers fell away, and I heard her move back. The gift can be awakened, but it will not be easy or painless. Are you willing to try? I hesitated, considering all the implications. If this was real, if I truly was an oracle, it would change everything. No longer the blind, useless Omega, but someone with power, with purpose, someone worthy of standing beside a king. But what if the awakening failed? What if I wasn't what they thought I was? The disappointment would be crushing, not just for me, but for Nathaniel, who had staked his reputation and perhaps his kingdom on this wild gamble. What would it involve? I asked cautiously. A ritual, Morwen explained. Ancient, rarely performed. It will open the pathways that have been closed, allow your inner sight to flow freely, but it will test you, body and spirit. The visions, when they first come, can be overwhelming. Dangerous? I pressed. A pause. There is always risk when dealing with such power. Some who undergo the awakening are lost to the visions, unable to return fully to the present. Others find the gift too much to bear. Nathaniel's hand found mine again, his touch steadying. You don't have to decide now. Take time to consider. But time was a luxury we might not have, if what he had told me about the coming war was true. If I truly possessed a gift that could help protect the kingdom, didn't I have a responsibility to try? I'll do it, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. If there's even a chance this gift exists, I want to know. Brave girl, Morwen said approvingly. We will begin tomorrow at dawn. The veil between worlds is thinnest then. Tomorrow? My voice wavered slightly. So soon. Unless you need more time, Nathaniel said, his thumb stroking the back of my hand in a gesture that felt oddly intimate. No, I replied, steeling myself. Tomorrow is fine. Then it's settled, Morwen said. Rest today. Eat lightly. Spend time in meditation if you can. The clearer your mind, the easier the awakening will be. Nathaniel escorted me from the tower after we finished speaking with Morwen. As we descended the winding stairs, his hand at my elbow to steady me, he remained unusually quiet. You're worried, I observed. Yes, he admitted, not bothering to deny it. The awakening is not without risk, as Morwen said. You don't think I should do it? He stopped on the stairs, turning to face me. His hands came up to cup my face, the gesture so unexpected it made my breath catch. I think you should do what you believe is right. But know this. Whatever you decide, whatever happens tomorrow, your place at my side is secure. Gift or no gift, you are my chosen. The intensity in his voice made something flutter in my chest. Why? I whispered. Why me? Even without the gift. His thumb stroked my cheekbones, gentle despite the power I could feel contained in his touch. Because in a room full of ambitious wolves, you were the only one who didn't hunger for my crown. Because when you speak truth, not flattery. Because something in me recognized something in you, Ilara. Something that has nothing to do with ancient gifts or prophecies. Before I could respond, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture of such unexpected tenderness that tears sprang to my eyes. Then he released me, his hand returning to my elbow as we continued down the stairs. The rest of the day passed in a blur of new experiences. Sebastian gave me a tour of the castle, describing each room in detail, helping me create a mental map I could navigate. Lily brought lunch to my chambers and stayed to chat, her youthful enthusiasm for castle life infectious. In the afternoon, I was introduced to members of the court who would serve as my ladies-in-waiting, their voices a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed skepticism. Through it all, I tried to maintain an outward calm, to project the dignity expected of the king's chosen mate. But beneath that facade, my mind raced with thoughts of the coming dawn, of the ritual that might change everything, or reveal that I was exactly what I had always been told I was. Nothing special, nothing magical, just blind. As night fell, I found myself unable to eat the dinner Lily had brought. My stomach knotted with anxiety as the reality of what awaited me sank in. A soft knock at my door broke through my spiraling thoughts. Come in, I called, expecting Lily returning to collect the untouched tray. Instead, the scent of winter and leather told me it was Nathaniel before he even spoke. I thought you might be having trouble sleeping, he said, closing the door behind him. I stood, suddenly aware that I was dressed only in my nightgown, my hair loose around my shoulders. Your Majesty, Nathaniel, I wasn't expecting you. I can go if you prefer, he offered immediately. I just wanted to see if you needed anything. Morwen suggested a sleeping draft might help. No, I said quickly. No drafts. I want my mind clear for tomorrow. A wise choice, he approved. I heard him move further into the room, stopping near the fireplace. The fire's gone cold. May I? Please, I replied, sinking back onto the edge of the bed. I heard him moving, adding wood to the grate, the soft whoosh as flames caught. Warmth gradually began to fill the room, along with the comforting scent of burning pine. Better? He asked, and I realized he had moved closer, standing just before me. I nodded, thank you. You're afraid, he observed, not a question. Wouldn't you be? I countered. Everything I've ever known about myself might change tomorrow, or I might discover that I truly am what everyone has always believed. Just a blind girl with no special gifts, no value beyond what you've inexplicably chosen to see in me. The bed dipped as he sat beside me, close but not touching. Fear is natural before any great change. But Alara, you must understand. Whatever happens tomorrow doesn't define your worth. Gift or no gift, you are not just anything. His words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, offering comfort I hadn't known I needed. We sat in silence for a moment, the crackling fire the only sound in the room. Will you stay? I asked suddenly, surprising myself with the request. Just for a while. I don't want to be alone with my thoughts tonight. Of course, he replied without hesitation. We talked then, about simple things at first. The castle, its history, the territories beyond. He described views I would never see, painting pictures with words that somehow made them real to me. His voice changed when he spoke of the land, becoming richer, deeper, filled with a pride that was not arrogance, but genuine love for his kingdom and its people. Gradually, our conversation shifted to more personal matters. He told me of his childhood as the heir to the throne, of the weight of expectation that had been his constant companion. I shared stories of growing up in the shadows, of finding small joys despite the limitations imposed by both my blindness and my family's shame. My grandmother was my only real ally, I confessed. She taught me to navigate by sound and scent, to create mental maps of spaces, to trust my instincts when my eyes couldn't guide me. When she died, I lost the only person who saw me as whole rather than broken. She was preparing you, Nathaniel observed, training you in her own way without revealing the truth. Perhaps he was right. The thought brought both comfort and sadness. Comfort that her care had been more purposeful than I'd realized, sadness that she hadn't trusted me with the truth. As we talked, the tension gradually left my body. I found myself yawning, the day's emotional exhaustion finally catching up with me. You should rest, Nathaniel said, rising from the bed. Dawn will come soon enough. Thank you, I said softly, for coming tonight, for talking with me. He reached down, his hand finding mine in a gentle squeeze. Sleep well, Alara. I'll come for you at dawn. After he left, I slipped beneath the covers, my mind quieter now. Whatever tomorrow brought, I would face it with as much courage as I could muster. And somehow, knowing Nathaniel would be there made the prospect less terrifying. Sleep claimed me quickly, and for once, no dreams disturbed my rest. The East Tower was silent when we arrived, the pre-dawn air cold and still. Nathaniel's hand rested at the small of my back as he guided me through the door, the gesture both protective and reassuring. Welcome, child, Morwen greeted me. Are you prepared? As much as I can be, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Good. We have prepared the ritual space. The air was heavy with the scent of herbs and incense. Sage, cedar, something sweeter I couldn't identify. A circle of candles had been lit. I could feel their warmth as Nathaniel led me forward. You will need to remove your shoes and any jewelry except the pendant, Morwen instructed. The connection to the earth and to your focus object must be unobstructed. I complied, slipping off my soft leather slippers, and the simple pearl earrings Lily had insisted completed my look. The stone floor was cold beneath my bare feet, grounding me in the present moment. Now stand in the center of the circle, Morwen directed. Nathaniel guided me to the right spot, his hand lingering on mine before he released me. I'll be right here, he promised, his voice low. I nodded, swallowing against the sudden dryness in my throat. Around me, I sensed movement as Morwen circled, murmuring words in a language I didn't recognize. The air seemed to thicken, pressure building as if before a storm. Take the pendant in your right hand, Morwen instructed. Close your eyes. Yes, I know, but do it anyway. Focus on your breathing. Imagine roots growing from your feet deep into the earth below. I followed her instructions, closing my unseeing eyes, wrapping my fingers around the carved wolf. My grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from the past. Sometimes the clearest sight comes from within, little one. I will now speak the ancient words, Morwen said, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality. They will open the pathways that have been closed. You may feel discomfort. This is normal. Do not fight it. Discomfort was an understatement. As she began to chant, pain lanced through my head, sharp and sudden as a lightning strike. I gasped, my free hand flying to my temple. Stay strong, Nathaniel called, concern evident in his voice. You can do this, Alara. The pain intensified, spreading down my spine, radiating through my limbs. The wooden pendant in my palm grew hot, almost burning against my skin, but I couldn't release it, couldn't move at all. My body was frozen, caught in the grip of something ancient and powerful. Then came the visions. Colors exploded in my mind. Colors I had never seen, had no names for. Shapes formed and dissolved, too fast to comprehend. Voices whispered, overlapping, speaking in tongues I didn't understand. Time seemed to fracture, moments from past, present, and future colliding in chaotic swirls. I was drowning in sensation, lost in a storm of images I had no context for. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. Someone, held me upright, a presence that was both within and beyond me. "Grandmother?" I whispered, or thought I did. The chaos paused, a moment of stillness in the storm. Then a single image crystallized in my mind. A border outpost in flames, warriors with unfamiliar markings pouring through a breach in the defenses. Blood on snow, a banner falling. "The southern border," I gasped, the words torn from me. "They come under cover of the winter storm. 3 days hence, at dusk." More images followed, faster now but clearer. A traitor within the council, passing information in coded messages. A weapon being forged in secret, designed to kill Alpha bloodlines. A network of spies embedded throughout the Northern Territories, waiting for the signal to strike. The visions were relentless, pouring through me like a river breaking through a dam. Too much. Too fast. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't separate myself from the deluge of information. "Enough!" Nathaniel's voice cut through the chaos, commanding in a way I had never heard before. The full power of the Alpha King resonated in that single word. The visions receded, the pain ebbing like a tide pulling back from shore. I became aware that I was on my knees, Nathaniel's arms around me, supporting my weight. I was shaking uncontrollably, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry," Morwen was saying. "It's been so long since a true oracle awakened. I didn't anticipate the strength of the gift." "Is she all right?" Nathaniel demanded, his voice tight with worry. His hand stroked my hair, gentle despite the tension I could feel in his body. "I think so," Morwen replied, her wrinkled hand touching my forehead. "The pathways are open now. With training, she will learn to control the flow, to call visions rather than being overwhelmed by them." I tried to speak, but my throat was raw, as if I had been screaming. Had I been? I couldn't remember. "Water," Nathaniel ordered. And seconds later, a cup was pressed to my lips. I drank gratefully, the cool liquid soothing my parched throat. "The southern border," I managed finally, my voice hoarse. "We need to warn them. 3 days. The attack comes in 3 days. You saw this?" Nathaniel asked, his arm tightening around me. I nodded weakly. "And more. There's a traitor in the council. Someone is passing information to the southern packs. And they're making a weapon, something designed to kill alphas." Nathaniel and Morwen exchanged a look I couldn't see, but could feel in the sudden tension in the air. "The visions will be clearer now," Morwen said, more controlled. "But she needs rest first. The initial awakening is always the most difficult." "Can you stand?" Nathaniel asked me gently. "I think so," I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure. My limbs felt like water, my head still spinning with fragments of visions. With his help, I rose shakily to my feet. The world tilted alarmingly, and I swayed against him. Without hesitation, he swept me into his arms, cradling me against his chest as if I weighed nothing. "I'll take her back to her chambers," he told Morwen. "Send Sebastian to me immediately. We need to verify what she saw about the southern border." "And if it's true?" Morwen asked quietly. "Then we prepare for war," Nathaniel replied, his voice grim. "And we find the traitor before they can do more damage." I wanted to say more, to tell them about the other things I had seen. Fragments that made little sense individually, but together painted a picture of conspiracy and betrayal, reaching far beyond what any of us had suspected. But exhaustion claimed me, darkness sweeping in to blot out even the lingering echoes of the visions. The last thing I remembered was Nathaniel's heartbeat against my ear, strong and steady, guiding me back to the present as consciousness slipped away. I woke slowly, awareness returning in gradual waves. Soft bed beneath me, Warm blankets covering me, the scent of lavender and pine, and something else. Someone else, nearby. "Nathaniel?" I murmured, my voice still rough. "I'm here," he replied immediately, and I heard him move from a chair to sit on the edge of the bed. "How do you feel?" I took a moment to assess. My head ached dully, and my body felt strangely heavy, as if I had run for miles. But the chaos of the visions had receded, leaving behind a strange clarity I had never experienced before. "Better," I said, different. "How long was I asleep?" "Most of the day," he replied. "It's nearly sunset." I pushed myself up to sitting, grateful when his hand moved to support my back. "The border," I said urgently. "Did you send warning?" "Yes." Sebastian rode out himself with our fastest messengers. The outposts are being reinforced and patrols doubled. He paused. "How did you know, Alara? The location you described, it's our most vulnerable point, but it isn't marked on any maps. It's information only the highest-ranking military officers possess." "I saw it," I replied simply, as clearly as if I stood there watching it happen. His hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Then the gift is real. You truly are an oracle." The wonder in his voice matched the strange, bubbling feeling in my chest. A mixture of fear and exhilaration. I wasn't broken. I wasn't useless. I was something rare and powerful. Something that might help protect a kingdom. "There's more," I said, memories of the visions becoming clearer now that I was fully awake. "The traitor, it's someone close to you. Someone with access to your private councils. They've been passing information for months, maybe years." Nathaniel's hand tightened on mine. "Do you know who?" I frowned, trying to focus on that particular vision. A shadowy figure writing by candlelight. A seal pressed into wax. A hand with a distinctive ring. "A silver ring with a black stone," I said slowly. "Carved with some kind of symbol. The person was wearing it on their right hand." "Lord Blackthorn," Nathaniel growled, the name vibrating with barely contained rage. "He wears his family crest, a thorn tree, on a black onyx ring. There's something else," I continued, another fragment surfacing. "A meeting. Tonight, in the old temple ruins beyond the North Gate. He's delivering new intelligence." Nathaniel stood abruptly. "I need to go. If we can catch him in the act." "Wait," I said, reaching for his hand. "Don't go yourself. It's too dangerous. That's what they want. To draw you out. Separate you from your guards." He paused. "You saw this too?" I nodded. "Send Sebastian with trusted men. Have them hide and watch. They'll get the proof you need without risking your life." He was silent for a moment, and I could almost feel him weighing my words against his instinct to act directly. Finally, he sighed. "You're right. It would be foolish to walk into a potential trap." He sat back down, his thumb stroking over my knuckles. "Is this what it will be like now? You seeing dangers before they manifest? Guiding my decisions?" There was something in his voice I couldn't quite identify. Uncertainty, perhaps? Fear that I would now control him with my visions? "I don't know what it will be like," I answered honestly. "The gift is new to me too, but whatever I see, whatever I know, it will always be yours to use as you see fit. I am your advisor, not your commander." The tension in his hand eased. "My equal," he corrected gently. "My partner in this and all things." A warmth spread through me at his words. Not just chosen for a gift, but seen and valued as a person. As a mate. "Sebastian should leave soon if he's to reach the ruins by nightfall," I said, reluctantly pulling my mind back to the immediate concern. "Yes." Nathaniel rose again. "I'll make the arrangements. Will you be all right alone? I can have Lily come sit with you. I'll be fine," I assured him. "Go. Do what needs to be done. I'll rest more. Try to sort through the other visions." He bent down, and to my surprise, pressed his lips to mine in a brief but tender kiss. "Thank you," he whispered against my mouth, "for bringing light to a kingdom that had forgotten how to see." Then he was gone, his footsteps fading down the corridor as he went to set a trap for the traitor who had threatened everything he had sworn to protect. And I, Alara, once the blind, forgotten Omega, now the Oracle of the Northern Territories, closed my eyes and smiled. For the first time in my life, I could truly see, not with my eyes, but with something far more powerful. A gift that had been mine all along, waiting only for the right moment. and the right alpha to awaken it.